If you're drawn to the darkest corners of real crime, hit subscribe, leave a comment, and stay with us, because once this story starts, there's no turning back. Red and blue lights washed over the pavement as sirens screamed into the night. The crowd had already scattered, leaving behind overturned barricades, dropped phones, and a silence that felt wrong, too heavy, too final. Paramedics worked frantically beneath floodlights, but it was already clear this wasn't a rescue. It was a crime scene. A public figure lay dead, and within minutes, the story would ignite across the country. The victim was Charlie Kirk, a polarizing political activist whose appearances routinely drew packed crowds, protesters, and heavy security. That night, the event had followed the usual script: tight entrances, tense stares, officers stationed at every corner. No one expected the sound that cut through the crowd just after the final applause. One sharp moment of chaos, then screaming, then silence. By the time police locked down the area, the shooter was gone. Detectives moved fast, knowing the pressure would be relentless. Media vans lined the street before the blood was even washed away. Every second without a suspect felt dangerous. Officers canvassed witnesses, replayed shaky phone footage, and tracked a chaotic web of tips pouring in from across the country. Somewhere out there, they believed, was a person who had planned this and vanished into the night. Behind the scenes, investigators began piecing together a name: Tyler Robinson. At first, it was nothing more than a whisper buried in digital noise, a familiar face to a few witnesses, a username mentioned twice in online chatter. Robinson wasn't famous, he wasn't powerful. He lived quietly, drifting between jobs, spending long nights online, leaving little trace in the physical world. But the digital world told a different story. As analysts pulled records, timestamps began to matter. The attack had occurred shortly after the event ended. Emergency calls flooded in, news alerts went out nationwide, and then, 80 minutes later, something unexpected appeared. According to investigators, a message was sent. Not a confession, not a goodbye, just a casual line dropped into a private conversation as if nothing extraordinary had happened. No panic, no fear, just detached commentary about the chaos unfolding on every screen in America. Detectives stared at the timestamp in disbelief. 80 minutes after a deadly attack, while police were still sweeping the area, someone allegedly connected to the crime was typing as if it were another ordinary night. That's when the room went quiet, one source later said, because that message changed how we understood the suspect. The hunt intensified. Surveillance footage showed a figure moving away from the venue, head down, pace steady. Cell phone pings traced a path through dark streets and anonymous parking lots. Friends were questioned. Family members were contacted. Everyone gave the same response: shock, disbelief, denial. But the evidence kept stacking up. Then came the discovery that turned suspicion into something far darker. Investigators uncovered additional messages allegedly sent after the first one, revealing not fear, but awareness, as if the sender knew exactly what had happened before the rest of the world caught up. And when detectives finally opened a private chat thread tied to Robinson's account, they realized this case wasn't just about a shooting. It was about what someone does after pulling the trigger. And what they were about to find next would change the investigation forever. By dawn, the investigation had shifted from chaos to calculation. The crime scene was sealed, the crowd long gone, but the digital footprint left behind was growing louder by the hour. Detectives huddled over monitors in a dim operations room, eyes fixed on chat logs, timestamps, and location data that painted a disturbing picture of calm after carnage. The messages allegedly linked to Tyler Robinson weren't frantic or remorseful. They were ordinary, casual. One investigator described them as what you'd expect after a late-night gaming session, not a national tragedy. That detail gnawed at everyone involved.
Crimes of passion burn hot and fast. This felt colder, measured. Robinson's online presence became the centerpiece of the case. Analysts traced his activity across platforms, reconstructing his final hours before and after the attack. The timeline was tight, too tight to ignore. Cell data suggested he had been near the venue earlier that evening. Surveillance footage from a nearby store showed a man matching his build, passing under a flickering light, hood up, hands tucked deep in his pockets. He didn't run. He didn't hesitate. He walked like someone who believed the hardest part was already over.
Meanwhile, pressure mounted from above. This wasn't just a homicide, it was a political lightning strike. Federal agencies offered assistance. Prosecutors began building a case before an arrest had even been made. Every move had to be airtight. One mistake could collapse everything. As detectives closed in, Robinson seemed to fade. His phone went dark. Bank cards stopped moving. Friends who had spoken to him regularly suddenly claimed they hadn't heard from him in days. One roommate said Robinson had left without explanation, taking only a backpack and a jacket. No goodbye, no note. Then came another twist. A friend, shaken and conflicted, contacted authorities. He handed over screenshots, conversations he hadn't thought mattered at the time. In them, Robinson allegedly referenced the attack indirectly, using coded language that now felt chillingly clear. Not bragging, not denying, just circling the truth, like he wanted someone to notice without saying it outright. Investigators believed Robinson was watching the coverage, tracking every update, adjusting his next move. The manhunt expanded beyond city limits. Highway cameras were checked, bus terminals alerted, border crossings flagged. The sense of urgency deepened with every passing hour. If Robinson felt cornered, no one knew what he might do next. Inside the task force, opinions split. Some believed he was spiraling, unraveling under the weight of what he'd done. Others argued the opposite, that he was dangerously composed. A suspect who could send casual messages after a killing might be capable of vanishing completely. Late that night, a breakthrough came from an unlikely place. A digital analyst noticed a login attempt tied to Robinson's account from a location that shouldn't have been possible, an address miles away from where his phone last pinged. Someone was either helping him, or he had planned this escape long before the first siren sounded. As officers prepared to move, a final alert flashed across the screen. A new message, a new timestamp. Robinson, it seemed, wasn't done communicating, and whatever he was trying to say next would force investigators to confront a terrifying possibility that the truth behind Charlie Kirk's murder was more deliberate, more calculated than anyone had dared to believe. The message arrived just after midnight, slipping through encrypted channels like a final provocation. Investigators froze as the words appeared on screen, measured, deliberate, and unmistakably aware of the storm they'd caused. It wasn't a confession, it wasn't an apology, it was a reminder that Tyler Robinson was still thinking, still choosing his moves, still ahead by a step. Within hours, a coordinated operation was underway. Tips converged on a rural stretch outside the city, a place where cell service flickered and cameras were scarce. Officers moved in silence, headlights off, the weight of the case pressing down on every breath. They found the vehicle first, abandoned, wiped clean, parked as if it had always belonged there. Inside the trunk, a backpack, clothing, a burner phone, and a handwritten note that stopped everyone cold. The note didn't name Charlie Kirk, it didn't mention politics. Instead, it spoke about being seen, about controlling the narrative, about how attention could be weaponized. Prosecutors would later argue it revealed motive without admitting guilt, a manifesto without a signature. To detectives, it read like someone who believed the aftermath mattered more than the act itself. By morning, Robinson was in custody. He turned himself in quietly, walking into a small police station hours away, eyes steady, hands visible. No chase, no resistance, just a calm surrender that felt unsettlingly consistent with everything they'd seen so far. As the case moved into the courtroom, the alleged messages became central. Jurors heard about the 80-minute mark, the point where the nation reeled, and Robinson, prosecutors claimed, typed as if detached from reality. Experts testified about behavioral patterns, about how some offenders seek control through emotional distance. The defense pushed back, arguing interpretation, coincidence, the danger of reading intent on a text on a screen. Outside, the world argued. Media panels debated motive. Online communities dissected screenshots frame by frame. Charlie Kirk's family grieved under the glare of cameras, their loss reduced to headlines and speculation. And through it all, one question refused to fade. How could someone move so casually after something so final? The verdict came swiftly. Guilty. The sentence followed, heavy and irreversible. For many, it felt like closure. For investigators, it felt incomplete. Months later, as evidence was archived and files closed, a junior analyst revisited the early timeline. Something still didn't sit right. A secondary login, a delayed sync, a message sent from a device that didn't quite match the rest. It suggested presence, but not authorship, assistance, but not identity. The finding was logged, quietly. No press release, no reopening of the case. Because sometimes justice answers the biggest question and leaves the most disturbing one untouched. Was Tyler Robinson acting alone, or was the casual message sent 80 minutes after the attack exactly what someone else needed the world to see? If this story left you uneasy, it should. And if you think this was intense, the next case will stay with you even longer. Make sure you're subscribed, because the truth doesn't always end where the headlines do.